It is not surprising to find the Israelites departing from God's ways. They were intermarrying and worshiping the gods of the Canaanites. The Israelites weren't trading God for another god. Rather, they were adding gods. The Canaanites had a god for rain, for fertility, etc. The Israelites were monotheistic. Yahweh was the only true God, their deliverer. As they took the pagan wives and pagan ways, the bonds with Yahweh and other tribe members began to weaken, and they became more vulnerable. God allowed them to be dominated by the Midians for 7 years of harsh treatment. Now, the Midianites were nomadic people who lived east and southeast of Israel. Their occupation of Israel was different from other occupations of Israel. Other conquering forces stationed people in Israel or took the Israelites captive back to their country. The Midianites, on the other hand, had a decentralized government. They did not extract taxes or tributes from the Israelites. The Midianites migrated to Israel generally around harvest time, and they would take the crops and livestock of the Israelites. Imagine working all year and someone stealing that which you need for your very survival. Israel was in despair. They were frustrated and angry. The situation was so bad that the people of Israel began to gather up their little things that they had and seek refuge in the caves and mountain hideouts. Israel, like modern Christians during frustrating time, was at their wits' end. And like us, they turned to the Lord crying out. Now the Lord sent an unnamed prophet. Sometimes we focus so much on the mountains and hurdles in front of us that we forget about the mountains we have already crossed. The prophet reminded Israel that the Lord had brought them out from the bondage of Egypt. He had delivered them from the people who would oppose them as they traveled to the promised land and those who would try to keep them from occupying the promised land. The prophet reminds Israel that God had warned them not to worship these foreign gods, but they did anyway. In essence, the prophet was telling them, sort of like my grandmother would say, you made your bed, now you got to lie in it, at least for a while. After the prophet appears with his divine review and rebuke, the angel of the Lord appears to Gideon while he was threshing wheat in a winepress. Note, generally, you're not going to thresh wheat in a winepress area. Thrashing wheat involved treading on the wheat and then tossing it up in the air so the chaff could be blown away in the wind. You needed an open area with ventilation to help, not a closed area. Gideon was in this winepress to hide from the Midianites. An angel of the Lord came and sat beneath an oak tree in the Ophrah area, looking at Gideon as he separated the wheat. The angel then approached Gideon with amazing words, saying, "The Lord is with you, courageous warrior." Now, Gideon is doing manual labor, farm labor. He doesn't look much like a warrior. The angel is foretelling his commission and fate. God commissions us to do that which he either has or will prepare us to do. The angel's statement is ringing hollow to Gideon. He neither looks like a courageous warrior as he cowers in the winepress, and he doesn't feel like one either, and he doesn't feel like the Lord is blessing Israel. Gideon has been taught about the Lord. In fact, he repeats the very words the prophet has used regarding God's deliverance of Israel, but his retort is in a way that turns God's words upside down. The prophet rebuked Israel for their disobedience. Gideon uses the words to accuse God of forsaking Israel. Gideon is talking about the nation. God is talking to Gideon. He charges Gideon like he does modern Christians, and when Gideon throws up an excuse saying, "My family is the weakest family in the land, and I am the weakest among my family," God disregards those excuses. Remember, in our weakness, God can show his strength. Yahweh assures Gideon in the same way he assures us today, saying, "I will be with you. You will be able to strike down the forces that oppose you." That's the message he gives to us today, and that's the lesson for this week. Have a great week. Bye.